Beginning current Daf, Mesech Taanis Daf Lamed, begin 8 lines down at the top of the Yomit, we'll continue to explain the halacha of our Mishnah regarding the laws of Tisha B'Av. Shis corresponds to Bekaz Zech Necheskel, Taanis Daf Chaim, Krishna joins with today's Daf. The Il Neshama from my uncle, Yaakov Yisrael ben Meitzik Isaac. I have 3 days in a row that I have yard sites. My uncle, my grandfather, and my father. So today is yard site Shabbat Il Neshama. Some ideas we're going to discuss in today's Daf are the laws of mourning during the Tisha B'Av period, the meal before Tisha B'Av, called the Sudam Masekes, and regarding working on Tisha B'Av, we're going to do Malacha. While the 15th of Av is as festive a day as Yom Kippur, as we said in our Mishnah, some of the key terms in the concept we're discussing today's Daf are Suda HaMafsekes, regarding that meal, which literally is mafsik, you stop the eating before the fast. The Chameshes Hinuyim, the 5 afflictions, eating, drinking, anointing with oil, wearing leather shoes, and marital relations, which are forbidden on Yom Kippurim, forbidden on Tisha B'Av. Korban Shlomim is a korban that's eaten for 2 days and 1 night, and the significance of that is regarding when do we consider meat as salted. So we said in the Mishnah that Erev Tisha B'Av, the 8 lines down at the top of the Yom Daf Lamed, so on the afternoon before Tisha B'Av, one should not be eating 2 cooked dishes, etc., which we said certain halachas. Now, on that halacha, Rabbi Yehuda, he qualifies, he says, we didn't learn El Meshei Shoyes Lamala. We only said this when it's 6 hours, meaning from noon and onwards into the day, as we said that Erev Tisha B'Av, one should not be eating 2 cooked dishes. El Meshei Shoyes Lamata, but meaning lower down, meaning towards the morning time. In the first half of the day, mutter, you're allowed to eat 2 cooked dishes. Another teaching from Rabbi Yehuda, this is another qualification. We didn't learn this prohibition of eating 2 cooked dishes. Only the meal that you stopped eating, that you're not going to eat any more from that meal onwards for the Taanis. But regarding the meal that you're not stopping your eating, even though it's afternoon, mutter, it's going to be paid in, as the Gemara explains, with Tavai L'Kula. Both these teachings are qualifying as a leniency, and you needed both. Had we said that this halacha applies specifically what we call by the Suda Mafsekes, by the meal that you stop eating by, I would have said, okay, but let's say you ate your Suda Mafsekes in the morning at 11 a.m., okay, and that's your last one, you're not hungry anymore. So you would think that, okay, now it'd be prohibited to have 2 cooked dishes. Kamash Mala, it's telling you the first teaching of Rabbi Yehuda, that Meshei Shos Lamala, it's only from noon and onwards. Even if you had Yisudim Mafsekes in the morning, it would still be permitted to have the 2 cooked dishes. And had we told you the halacha of that the prohibition of 2 cooked dishes is from the afternoon, I would have thought to say that you now have 2 cooked dishes even by an earlier meal that you're having. It's not going to be your last meal, but it's already afternoon. But we have to tell you both these qualifications. It's only by the Sudam Mafsekes, and it has to be if the Sudam Mafsekes is in the afternoon. If it's missing one of those things, it would not be prohibited to have 2 cooked dishes. And the Gemara says, Tani Kadlish Nekama and Tani Kadlish Nebraisa. A Braisa like the first qualification, and a Braisa like the second qualification. As the Gemara explained, Tani Kadlish Nekama Basra. We have a Braisa like the last qualification of Rabbi Yehuda, that says like this: Asayid Erev Tisha B'Av. If someone's having a meal on Erev Tisha B'Av, the afternoon before Tisha B'Av, Im Asid listed Suda Cheres, if he's going to end up having another meal, which is our custom, we end up eating and then we have a small little Suda Maseket. So Mutalach Abbas Alishas Yain. You're allowed to eat meat, you're allowed to drink wine, even though those are things we said you shouldn't be having on Erev Tisha B'Av. But if not, you're not going to have another meal. Oh, so Lech Abbas Alishas Yain. Now that eat meat and drink wine, so you see that these halachas that are prohibiting were only by the Mafsekes, which was the second version of Rabbi Yehuda. And so to Tani Kalishna, we have a Braisa like the first version. Erev Tisha B'Av, the evening before Tisha B'Av, Lo Yochel Adam Shnei Tavshin, the person should not eat 2 cooked dishes, and Lo Yochel Basa B'Lish Yain. He should not eat meat, and he should not drink wine. And he says Yishana, like he said in the Mishnah, that you should change what you had done. Which Amr Rabbi Yehuda says, Kitzim Mishana, how should a person change what he had done? If he would normally eat 2 cooked dishes, only eat 1 cooked dish. Which Tracer explains that 2 cooked dishes could be like in 2 different pots. It depends on what it means, 2 cooked dishes. If he normally would eat with 10 people, which they would eat with him for his honor, so now you should only eat with 5 people, because like Tracer says, he has to diminish in his honor. You have to be in the state of mourning. If you normally drink 10 cups, he has to drink now only 5 cups. And like Taisus says, you have to diminish as much as possible from all your types of hanok. Now, when we say this, and this is the qualification that's going to be like the first version of Rabbi Huda. When did we say these halachas, which we had a machlekes here in this brisa between Rabbi Shloimy Leil and between the Tanna Kama? But it's Mishei Shos Lamala. It's only afternoon. From the first half of the day, then it's going to be mutter. So you see, like the first version of Rabbi Yehuda, that this halacha is only in the afternoon. So we see 2 brises, like both versions of Rabbi Yehuda, that it's only in the afternoon, and it's only by the Suda Hamavsekis. Now, a related vein, similar machlekes, Taanis Daf in the brisa. Erev Tisha B'Av, V'yichal Adam Shnei Tavshin, a person should not be eating 2 cooked dishes. V'yochel basar, shouldn't eat meat, v'lish yain, shouldn't drink wine. That's the B'rei Meir. The Chachamim, the sages say that yeshana, you should change, which they're going on the 2 cooked dishes. That you should change from the 2 cooked dishes that you normally do. They don't say you can't have it. They say you should change. And umamayit b'basar v'yain. They don't say straight out like the Tanna Kama, like Rameh, that says that you're not allowed to go ahead and have it all. They say that you should diminish. Now, how do you diminish? So, every normally would eat a liter of meat. Eat a half a liter. They don't say you can't have meat at all. You should diminish it. If you normally drink a lug of wine, you should drink a half a lug of wine. If you're not usually accustomed to it, then of course it's forbidden, but you don't have to totally wipe it out. He says, if someone would normally eat radish or something salted after his meal, which the reason why we're saying about salted, because fish or meat that's salted doesn't have such a real good taste of the actual meat when it was already absorbed for 3 days in salt, as the Gemara is going to tell us later on. So therefore, so that he's permitted to eat is not considered in the prohibition of eating basar by the Suda Hamavsekis, because it's salted. Tani Devlin, another brisa, Kol Shehu Mishum Tisha B'Av. Anything that has the prohibition of Tisha B'Av related to it, for example, like Rashi says, the Suda Hamavsekis, which that is related, it's the prelude to Tisha B'Av. So asalecha basar, basar yain, not allowed to eat meat, not allowed to drink wine, basar lechatz, not allowed to wash yourself. Now, kosher ain't mishum Tisha B'Av, whatever is not part of related to Tisha B'Av. For example, like Rashi says, the Suda that you're stopping when you're having a regular Taanis Daf, or let's say a Suda that's not the one that you're stopping with. Well, then mutalecha basar, then you're allowed to eat meat, and lishtas yain, allowed to drink wine, and basar lechatz, or some girsos actually have it mutalechatz, you're allowed to bathe. That there's no problem. It's only regarding Tisha B'Av that we have these stringencies. Shmuel b'Reb Isi Mishum Av, he says in the name of his father, Kol shosha mutar lechol basar, as long as you're allowed to eat meat, which Rashi says not to have the gears of meat, because in other words, we're saying just in general, as long as you're allowed to eat, meaning even if it's at the time of Suda Hamavsekis, then mutar lechatz, it says no, then you're allowed to wash yourself, because if you're allowed to eat, you're allowed to wash. So seemingly machlekes regarding what the stringencies are regarding rechitza, regarding eating at all, or regarding when you have meat. In the brisa, in general, going back to the laws of Tisha B'Av, kol mitzvahs hanoigis ba'avel, all the halachas that apply to a mourner, nehegis b'tes ba'av, apply by Tisha B'Av, which we know that it's really reverse engineering the whole halachas of Tisha B'Av from the 3 weeks to Rosh Chodesh, Shavuos Chalboi, and it really gets more and more closer to the laws of Avelis. It's almost like what Avelis is backwards is the Shiva and then the Shleishim and then the Year. So here also we have whatever halachas applied by Aval Nagis b'Tes B'Av applies by Tisha B'Av. Asa b'chil b'shtiya, you're not allowed to eat and drink, which Rashi points out that has nothing to do with a mourner. A mourner actually they do a lot of eating and drinking. It's just saying that besides for the halachas that are applied by Aval, there's also other halachas that apply by Tisha B'Av too, which is eating and drinking. But then there are other ones which we're going to quote now, which are bathing, ubesicha, and anointing, benil sasandal, putting on shoes. These are prohibited for a mourner, and they're also prohibited on Tisha B'Av. B'tashma shamita, marital intimacy, and v'asur likra is b'toyim and v'im miksubim. You're not allowed to read from the Torah and the v'im miksum from Tanakh, because the Torah tells us it's called mesamchi leid. Torah rejoices a person's heart. And actually funny, I said last night, but about my Feta Yankee, the one that it's his yard side, is mamash ben mesamchi lev. You always saw when he had said Dvar Torah, so he was freilich. I mamash quoted that pasuk that and that's why you're not allowed to learn on Tisha B'av. Neither v'lashad is b'mishnah, to l'mishnai is b'talmud, b'medrash, in Talmud or in the midrashim, b'halachas v'agadis, in the law and the Agadi teachings. But he's allowed to go ahead and read where he doesn't normally read from, because, as Rashi says, since he doesn't really know it so well, so it's actually tsar, it's actually difficult, painful, like you're learning something that you're not used to it, so that you're allowed to learn from. And so too, you're also allowed to learn, you're allowed to read, and you're also allowed to learn what you're not accustomed to learning. So to be bikinis, you could also go ahead and read from the kinnis, from the Lamentations, Sefer Eicha, Be'iyur, and all the bad things that happen to Eve, all the bad things that it talks about in Sefer Yirmiyah. And the young children, either the Gersa is B'Talin or Ein B'Talin, different Gersais, but they're not allowed to learn. Mishum Shemuk, it says the pasuk in Tehillim, B'Kudi Hashem Bishadim, like we mentioned before, the commandments of Hashem are upright, Misamchi Lev, they make our heart happy, so no one's allowed to go ahead and learn. Which I just saw a Shaila the other day, was allowed to learn Aleph Beis with the kids. They said, yeah, even the Aleph Beis, everything is mamish, the Torah is Misamechas, it makes a person happy. He says, he disagrees with Tanakh. He says, not only not allowed to learn what you're used to, but even what you're not used to, even that you're not allowed to read from. And he's not allowed to learn even that which you're not used to learning. Avol, but he agrees to the Tanakh that Kodehu will be Eve, you're allowed to read from Sefer Eve, Bekinnas, Lamentations, and the bad things of Yirmiyahu, and whether it's the Tanakh said in B'Talin, so he's disagreeing, or he's agreeing, says the school children, they also can't learn, because it says in the Pasuk, Mendra Hashem are upright, they make a person happy, and therefore one is not allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av. Now he said in the Mishnah that which we were mentioning before, but the Sudam of Sekes, a person is not allowed to go ahead and eat meat and drink wine. Now, Tanakh the Brisa, which qualifies this halacha, and says that but he's allowed to eat salted meat. He's allowed to drink wine from the press, means to say it hasn't fermented yet, because these are things that are not so pleasurable. The wine is only when they're fermented for a long time. You see the years in the bottle. It's more expensive. The older it is, it's better quality. And so to the meat, the salt diminishes the quality of the meat. It preserves it, but it takes away. Says the Gemara Basam Aliyach Ad Kama. When you tell me salted meat, until how long will it stay as regular meat that it will not be problematic that you salted it, that it's now considered like a salted piece of meat? So I'm going to begin by Kamish Medishmol. It says, because Manchu is the Gersa Shlamim. As long, like this Rashi's Gersa, as long as it's like a Shlamim, which it did not stay with its salt more than 2 days and 1 night, which is the amount of time you can do Kavan Shlamim. And that's Rashi says, why do we pick a Shlamim? Because the eating of the Shlamim, we find that it's called Basar. The Pasuk in Yikra says, Vanisa Mibisar Zevach HaShlamim. We find that it's called Basar. More than that, we don't find that it's called basar, and the reason that is because the taste of the meat gets ruined if it's salted for a period of 2 or 3 days. People salt things to preserve it, but it loses the quality of the freshness of the meat, and therefore, if it's more than 2 days, then it's already going to be considered as salted meat, and that you would be permitted to have at the Suddha on the second. And the Megita, this we said regarding wine from the press, which is new and sweet, and it's not good like old aged wine, and actually is more of a diuretic and it's harmful. Ad kama, how long do we consider it from the press? So it's because manchu taste is as long as it's still fermenting, that means it has not yet come to its high quality state. And related, Tanu we learn the Brisa, yayin tases, this fermenting wine, when it's still fermenting, there's no halachic problem about being left uncovered, which generally you're not allowed to leave wine uncovered. The reason that is we're concerned that a snake might come and drink from it and put in its poison. A snake is not going to drink from it because he runs away from its fermentation. And and how much is considered the time that it's literally like bubbling, fermenting, that it's not yet even considered wine. For 3 days, so if one could drink from that type of grape juice / wine in the first 3 days of when it was pressed. And Amr Rabbi Yudmirav, he says regarding the halachas of morning of Tisha B'Av, how a person should be eating his Sudim Sekes. So he says, his custom was Erev Tisha B'Av, they would bring him dry bread with salt, and he would drink, and he would sit, as he continued to base, he'd sit between the oven and the stove, which is a disgusting place in the house with the soot. It's all dirty over there. And he would sit and drink over there a flask of water. But then it appeared as if his dead person, his relative had just passed away in front of him. That's how a person eats a Sudim of Sekes on the floor, and as a sign of mourning on the base of English. Related, a place where the custom is to do work on Tisha B'Av, so then you can do work. If the custom is that people don't work on Tisha B'Av, then you don't do work. However, no matter which place you're in, if you're Talmid Chacham, B'Teilim, they don't do work on Tisha B'Av. And Rav Shimon Lelam, he says more than that. He says, everyone should make himself like a Talmid Chacham. So although many times we say don't be like a Talmid Chacham because it's considered arrogance, but here everyone should be like a Talmid Chacham and not work on Tisha B'Av. Tanakh is similar in the Brayso. Rav Shimon Lelam, it says, person should always make himself like a Talmid Chacham because that he should afflict himself for the inui of Tisha B'Av. Another Brayso. Let me says, whoever eats and drinks on Tisha B'Av, it's like as if he ate and drank on Yom Kippur. That's how severe Tisha B'Av is. Yomי says, whoever does malacha Tisha B'Av, doesn't see a sign of blessing forever, which an important qualification Rashi says, and the place can bring it down, is malacha. Doesn't mean that once you do work on Tisha B'Av, you're never going to have success in your work at all. I mean, whatever work you did on Tisha B'Av, that money's, that's what oftentimes people take those monies and do something with it, because that money you're not going to see a siman bracha forever. And as Taisa points out, the reason is because on Tisha B'Av you're supposed to be mitzar and memait in your honor and in your pleasures. If you normally would sleep on 2 pillows, Taisa says you sleep on 1 pillow. He says obviously pregnant nurse or women don't have to do that. But again, it's a day when we diminish our pleasures that we do and we focus on the tzar. Now, the sages say, whoever does malacha on Tisha B'Av, and is not mourning on Yerushalayim, so then so it doesn't merit to see in its joy. Like it says in Yeshaya, Simchas Yerushalayim, rejoice with Yerushalayim, the Giluba Kol Aveha, and have joy, all those who love it. Sisu Ita Mesais, be happy with it, all those Kol Mes'amala that mourn in it. So Mekanamar, from here they said, well-known phrase, whoever mourns in Yerushalayim, merits to see in its joy, but whoever does not mourn over Yerushalayim, does not merit to see in its joy. You can't just come in for the after party, for the rejoicing party. You got to be part of the whole thing of the mourning. Whoever eats meat and drinks wine on Tisha B'Av, which Rashi says doesn't mean on Tisha B'Av itself, it means by the Sudim of Sekes, meaning that which is the last meal before Tisha B'Av. Allah on him the Pasuk says that their sins are going to be on their bones, they're going to be on themselves, which because of the great problem about not mourning over Yerushalayim. And we have in the Mishnah that Rabbi Huda L'chai B'kfiyas Amita, he obligated the turning over the beds, which is generally a sign of mourning, and one should do that in Tisha B'Av too. But the Chacham did not agree to that. Now, Tanya in the Brayso that qualifies this machlekes. They said to Rabbi Yehuda, according to your words, that people have to turn over the beds and sleep on the floor. The pregnant and the nursing women that they can't sleep on the floor, what's going to be with them? Let me say, I only said by those who it's possible for them to sleep on the floor. I didn't mean for the pregnant and the nursing women. And Taanis Daf in the Brayso, Rabbi Yehuda agrees. He agrees to them that if a person can't sleep on the floor, they don't. And actually, Chum agreed to Rabbi Yehuda when a person could sleep, that they should. So says, wait a second, what's the difference between them? Since he agrees when they agree when you could, and he agrees when you can't, so what's the machlekes between them? Says the difference between them is the other beds in the house, which no one's sleeping on. Rabbi Yehuda, who says in the Mishnah you have to do kfiyas amit, you have to turn over the beds, he holds that even by those who could sleep on the floor, even the other beds should be turned over. Rabban hold, no, only his bed you have to turn over, but not the other beds. Like when the Brisa by a mourner, when they said that you have to turn over the bed, it's not only his bed itself that you have to turn over. Rather, all the beds you turn over, and that's machlekes to read down the Chachamim. Regarding the other beds, you have to turn those, is like the sign of a mourner only the person's personal bed, or all the beds in the house. And Rabbi says, the halach is like our Tana, meaning, when the Mishnah said the Chacham did not agree to him, it means kol ikar, it means all the way. Meaning not like the Brisa said that the Chacham agreed to Rabbi Yehuda when it's yachal that you sleep on the floor. No, it's like the halach of our Tana that says totally that you don't turn over any beds whatsoever. And Taisa says now that we're chashim the kshafim, that we're concerned for sorcery, so we don't do kris hamita ever, even by avelas, because of that it seems like something of sorcery. Thank you to Anytime for hosting us.